The weight of impossible. When I told my family I wanted to be a scientist, they laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but the kind of chuckle people make when a child says they want to be an astronaut or a rock star. My father patted me on the shoulder. That's nice, Emma, but maybe think about something more realistic. My older brother smirked. She can barely pass physics. Good luck curing cancer. Their doubt stung more than the failed grades or the broken experiments. But instead of burying my dream, it lit a fire. High school was a battlefield. I wasn't the smartest in the room. Equations twisted in my mind like tangled wires. While other kids breezed through chemistry, I stayed up past midnight, red-eyed, scribbling until my pencil left dents in the page. Why work so hard? My mother asked. It's not your strength. You're better with people, maybe nursing, not science. But every failed test was a dare. Every dismissive word was fuel. I carried a secret notebook where I wrote 2 words at the top of every page. Prove them wrong. University was worse. I got into a small program, barely. Surrounded by brilliant minds, I felt like a fraud. I nearly dropped out after my first year when I flunked organic chemistry. I called home, sobbing, hoping for comfort. Instead, my father sighed. We told you, Emma, it's not who you are. Come home before you waste more time. That night, sitting on the cold floor of my dorm room, I made a choice. Not to quit, but to fight harder than I ever had. If success was reserved for geniuses, then I would become relentless instead. I restructured my life. Mornings started at 5 a.m. I recorded lectures, replayed them until I could recite every step of every formula. I found tutors, begged professors for extra help, formed study groups. Failure became a teacher instead of a wall. Slowly, painfully, the tide shifted. I passed the exams I once thought impossible. Professors started noticing my persistence. One called me the most stubborn student I've ever met. I wore it like a crown. By the time I graduated, I wasn't top of my class, but I was still standing when half had dropped out, and that mattered more. I pursued a PhD in biomedical engineering, an arena so complex it scared me. My research focused on creating a low-cost diagnostic device for early detection of respiratory diseases. It felt ambitious, even ridiculous. Labs with 10 times my funding had failed. My family, they still didn't believe. At Christmas, my brother raised a glass and joked, "Here to Emma, still playing scientist. Maybe one day she'll invent something real." Laughter echoed around the table. I smiled tightly, excused myself, and went back to my room to sketch prototypes. Years of trial followed. Countless nights in sterile labs, circuits sparking, chemicals spilling, prototypes collapsing in my hands. For every success, a dozen failures waited. But each time I wanted to quit, I heard their voices, not smart enough, not cut out for this, be realistic. And I refused to let them be right. One winter morning, after months of tweaking, the device finally worked. A shoebox-sized tool that could analyze breath and detect early signs of chronic lung disease, in minutes, at a fraction of the usual cost. I stared at the readout, disbelief flooding me. I ran the test again, and again, each time the same accurate result. I cried alone in the lab, the hum of machines my only witness. Not tears of sadness, but of victory. The device was published in medical journals, then picked up by international conferences. Grants poured in. Hospitals wanted trials. Suddenly, I was no longer the struggling student who couldn't pass physics. I was Dr. Emma Clark, the scientist whose invention might save millions of lives in developing countries. When my university hosted a press event, I stood on stage with cameras flashing. I gave a speech about resilience, about the beauty of failure, about the grit behind discovery. Reporters scribbled notes, people clapped, strangers shook my hand. But in the crowd, one face stood out. My father, arms crossed, eyes wet. Afterward, he approached me quietly. "Emma," he said, voice trembling, I was wrong. All these years I never believed, but you did this." I smiled. "Yes, Dad, I did." And then I pressed a small prototype into his hands. "This is for you, not because you doubted me, but because your doubt kept me going. Every no became my reason to find a yes." He held it like it was made of glass. I didn't become a scientist to prove them wrong. I became one to prove myself right. But standing there, my family speechless around me, I realized something important. Sometimes, the greatest obstacle isn't the world, it's the voices closest to you. And the greatest victory isn't their applause. It's the quiet knowledge that you turned their disbelief into the very fire that forged you.